So now we're going to shift gears and take a look how Dad is going through all this. I mentioned last week that there is such detail in these chapters 42, 43, 44. And what it's doing is it's bringing out for us family conversations, the give and take, the back and forth, the shades of transparency and not so transparent. So chapter 43, they're out of food again. Simeon's in prison. Joseph is dead. Benjamin must go to Egypt. And Jacob is not a happy camper. What does Jacob do? And what would we do? Jacob responds negatively. He does more than just simply viewing things horizontally, person to person. He's relating everything to self. He's over 100 years old. He's got grandchildren, maybe great-grandchildren, and he's worried about self. He's resisting something new, and he panics. In football, you'd say we're going to call an audible. Jacob had trouble walking by faith, even though he was many years a saved man. Could that fit you and me? The Bible says several times, the just shall live by faith. But how many times do I take my faith and set it aside, and I rely on my own understanding? Proverbs 3. He had trouble walking by faith, even with appearances by God. Physical wrestling with God. Now, this is what he should have said. Boys, now is the time to rely on God's promises. He will provide. Jehovah Jireh. Let's get on our knees, pray for safety, and watch God work. Is that what Jacob said? No, you've read this chapter before. He said, no way are you taking Benjamin. Let Simeon rot. We'll live on pistachios and almonds and pour a little bit of honey over it. And as they emptied their sacks, keep in mind we just went from singular to plural on the sack thing. And as they emptied their sacks, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. Keep in mind what brother said earlier. What has God done to us? What are they afraid of? There's Simeon. There's the sole source of food, Egypt. And Jacob, their father, said to them, notice the me and the my, you have bereaved me of my children. Now, what does Jacob know so far? He knows that Joseph died. He was killed by wild animals, as it were. He knows that Simeon is in prison. And we're going to see in a few more clicks that Jacob is really only interested in Benjamin as a son. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more, and now you would take Benjamin. All this has come against me. He's not worried about Simeon rotting in jail. He's not worried about children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren starving to death. He's worried about me. Then Reuben said to his father, kill my two sons. Now, if the sons were in the room, imagine them. Well, way to go, Dad. I told you, this is a family conversation. Kill my two sons if I did not bring him back to you. Now, let's just assume that Reuben loved his two sons, okay? But that's not a substitutionary sacrifice. It's a substitutionary sacrifice in the other way. Put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you. But he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is the only one left. Well, there are 12 brothers living. Jacob says, he's the only one left. Now, how do you think the other brothers felt about that? We know that the brothers hated Joseph. We don't know that they hated Benjamin. Maybe they were feeling more angst towards their father than towards Benjamin. Benjamin just happened to be the victim. He just happened to be the one born by Rachel, and all the other guys got born by somebody else. But Dad, many, many years later, says he is the only one left. If harm should happen to him on the journey that you are to make, you would bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol. Now that is a transliteration, meaning it took a Hebrew word and just moved the Hebrew word over. Similar to the Greek word baptizo, which means to immerse. And rather than saying immerse, they just took that Greek word and brought it over there. Now, the reason I say that Sheol is tricky is because sometimes it refers to 6 feet under, classically, and sometimes it refers to a negative afterlife. Make no mistake, there is a hell that is hot, and it's there for those who do not give their faith in Jesus Christ. Jacob was a saved man, and when he says, you're going to bring my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol, he was talking about 6 feet under. He was not talking about hell. So Jacob's in denial. He delayed until the only things left to eat were his words. We'll take a look at round 2 and round 1. Round 2, they're now deep into the famine. The boys have come back from round 1. In round 2, he says, now the famine was severe in the land, and when they had eaten the grain that they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, go again and buy us a little food. This is what he said the first time. When the brothers learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, why do you look at one another? Now, I was listening to a preacher. He said, these guys are staring to death and they're looking at one another, and one of them is named Reuben. You gotta let that one sink in. And he said, behold, I have heard that there is grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die. So now here's Judah. And we're going to find out that Judah is going to step up. We find here that Judah is not going to say to Dad, kill my 2 sons, we'll trade you 2 for 1. He says right here, he said, I will be assurance, and it'll be on me forever. And when we fast forward, we're going to find out that Benjamin is, we're not going to cover this today, Benjamin is about to be taken the prisoner. And Judah says, oh, please don't. You'll kill my dad. Take me instead. True substitution. But Judah said to him, the man solemnly warned us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down. He's talking to Dad. Dad, there's no way we're going down to that. Let Simeon rot. Poor Simeon is sitting there in prison. He has no idea what's going on. Dad doesn't show a whole lot of concern for him. Brothers don't show a lot of concern for him. It's every man for himself. This verse also puzzles me, because when Jacob's name was changed to Israel, as a general rule, when you hear the word Israel, it's either referring to the nation or it's referring to this individual doing something godly. I don't see it here, so I don't understand why it says Israel instead of Jacob. God will explain it to me one day. Israel said, why do you treat me so badly? There's 70 people starving, and Jacob says, why are you picking on me? Why did you tell them that you had another brother? They replied, the man questioned us carefully about ourselves and our kin. Joseph didn't ask them any questions about those. They just started spewing at the mouth. What we told him was an answer to these questions. Bang, bang, lie, lie. Could we in any way know that he would say, bring your brother down? So either Benjamin comes down and maybe Benjamin's going to die, or he's not going to go down and we're all going to die. Dad, you choose. And Judah said to his father, send the boy with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you and all our little ones. I will be a pledge for his safety. Judah steps up. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. Now, what does that really mean? We don't have an expansion here, but we do know what it meant to Judah. He was going to substitute himself for Benjamin. If we had not delayed, we would have now returned twice. Again, there's a family conversation. That's the kind of things you say back and forth and back and forth. Sort of reminds me of what Caiaphas said about Jesus. Caiaphas said, nor do you understand that it is better for you that one man should die for the people, not that the whole nation should perish. So how does Jacob respond? And then we ask the question, how do we respond? And you saw those 4 bullets earlier. A negative response. He's viewing things horizontally. He's pushing back and he's saying, we're not going to do this and then he panics. We're going to add 2 more to this. Denial and delay, blame and deceit. There's this thing called the blame game. A couple smiles tell me, yeah, you've either played that game or you've been on the other end of that game. But Jacob's going to go into denial. He's going to delay. Maybe the rains will come. Maybe the famine will end. At this point, they don't have any seed anyway. All they have are nuts and honey. Then their father Israel, again, there it is Israel as opposed to Jacob. I don't understand it. Then their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Take some of the choice fruits of the land in your bags and carry a present down to the man. A little balm, a little honey, gum, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds. What did he do when he was about to meet Esau? He started sending presents in front of them, donkeys and camels, and then he started sending his family in front of them with the choices close. Again, self-centered. What he did not see was the hand of God. Anybody know who that guy is? Mike Lindell, mypillow.com. Somebody gave me a book this guy had written. The title of it was, What Are the Odds? And the picture on your left is Mike Lindell as a crack cocaine addict. And the picture on the right is CEO Mike Lindell, and you can see the cross on his chest. Well, I finished that book this past week, and chapter after chapter after chapter, it talks about all this stuff he got into and all the against the odds ways he got out of them. And for me, the climax of the book was he had a friend that was reading these manuscripts and trying to decide that, which goes in, which goes out, what are the sequences. And the friend says, any one of these would turn a normal person to God. Here are brothers. Any one of these things would have gotten them to wake up. Take double the money with you. Carry back with you the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. Take also your brother and arise and go again to the man. Now, I don't know how many people came in front of Joseph to buy grain. They're coming from all over the world. What are the odds, Mike Lindell, what are the odds that somehow the sack of money fell back into the sack of grain? What are the odds that it happened 10 times in a row? May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man. Maybe that's why his name was Israel in this passage and not Jacob, because he finally came back to God. May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, and may he send back your other brother and Benjamin. As for me, he's coming back to self again. As for me, I am bereaved of my children. I am bereaved. There is the original Eeyore right there. So lessons learned. Number one, recognize and admit my negative mentality. I heard it said that if you have a bad experience, say as a shopper, there's a 70% chance that you'll repeat that bad experience. On the other hand, if you have a good experience as a shopper, there's only a 30% chance that you'll repeat that experience. We somehow have baked inside of us a negative mentality. Force a vertical focus until it flows freely. I have met some people that no matter what happens, it's all about God. It comes back to God. And I guess that's my horizontal propensity, because I'm thinking, how can you say that? It's because people have forced that vertical focus. Just like Paul wrote to the Philippians, he said, I have learned to be content in whatever circumstance I'm in. It's not an overnight kind of thing. It's not once and done, I figured it out and now it's just going to flow normally. It's a growth kind of thing. Stay open to new ideas. This comes from Swindoll. Stay open to new ideas for at least 5 minutes, as opposed to, let's try X. Oh, that'll never work. Let it work on you.